It comes out of the context of the consequences of unworthy communion. In the New Testament, do you know that some would come to the Lord's Supper drunk? That some would come just because it was a meal that preceded it or even followed it? The Moravian church, in a beautiful way, still depict this. I've been in one Moravian service where the Lord's Supper was, and they actually had a meal just honoring the fellowship and communion that God has brought as a result of what he did at the cross. So the consequences of unworthy communion is the reason for chastening. He says in verse number 29, "For he who eats or drinks in an unworthy manner eats and drinks judgment to himself, not discerning the Lord's body." And again in verse 32, "But when we are judged, we are chastened," if you're a believer, "that we may not be condemned with the world." So judgment and chastisement. So it speaks of a father's discipline of his children. God disciplines his children, not to punish them, but to correct their sinful behavior and direct them in the paths of righteousness. God's discipline always has at its heart reconciliation, correction, moving you closer in to relationship with him. The writer of Hebrews in chapters 12 and verse 7 said, "If you endure chastening, God deals with you as with sons. For what son is there whom a father does not chasten?" And so the results of chastening in verse 30 and 31 says there's times God has actually administered chastening that has taken it to the nth degree. In verse number 30 he says, "For this reason many are weak and sick among you." And this is really where God has actually brought chastening into life.